Hey guys, Quiv the Lazy Geek here and welcome back to the channel. As many of you have noticed, I haven't been very active on YouTube recently. A lot of not so good things happened. The biggest one was I got infected with COVID-19. Symptoms were mild, but still it felt like a flu on steroids, and they kept going and going and going and going, which kind of sapped all of my energy. And I still don't have all of my energy back. I'm still having kind of a burnout kind of thing, but for now, I am back and I am fine. And I did one night of astrophotography a few days ago on the Flaming Star and the Tadpoles Nebula, while Comet Atlas was, maybe still is, in the area. So I could capture all of these objects into one field. I used my Sharpstar 61 EDPH2 telescope, whose more well-known version is the OPT Radian scope. I will not mention that name anymore in this video. And I used the ASI 533 MC Pro color camera, as well as my Optolong L-Extreme filter, which is basically a narrowband filter for color cameras. And things went well. The whole night I was able to take pictures, and there was not a single cloud throughout. It was awesome. I ended up with 250 exposures of 90 seconds long. And then when I looked at Nina, the software I used to capture, and which has a graph of the number of stars that are in each subframe, and when I also did the subframe selector in PixInsight, which lets you also measure the number of stars that you have in your field of view, basically, I noticed, as I usually notice, because I am in Tokyo, that the closer to the horizon, the fewer stars were detected, which is normal because you get more and more light pollution, more and more of the nice, beautiful Tokyo light dome into your field of view. And which means that when I plotted number of stars on the y-axis versus the exposure number or the time of the night on the x-axis, I got a nice bell curve like that. That tells me it's not great, which means that I'm left with two things. I can take all of my frames because I got signal, damn it, and I want to use that signal. Or I can say like, okay, no, the ones with fewer stars, they're lost in light pollution. Trying to add those frames will just handicap me, and it's not going to be good. And we're going to exclude them. And I did both. I did one take where I integrated everything, all 250 frames. I had to throw away a few because of wind, but the wind, there was very little wind that night, so only 4 frames had to be thrown away, handpicked. And then I did the subframe selector in PixInsight. I rejected all of the outliers, basically like almost 1 hour on each side of the basically 1 hour on each side of the horizon to remove like the worst affected frames. And I got also I weighted the subframes using the number of stars, which is something that I usually do if you've seen my processing videos. So with that, we ended up with 2 sets of data, one with over 6 hours of data and the other with over 4 hours of data. So there's an almost 50% increase in exposure time between one and the other, except that the lower exposure time focuses on higher quality frames, while the longer exposure time focuses on lower quality frames. It takes everything assuming that we get more signal. And then I processed that. Now, I was very careful to keep the processing quite simple, very straightforward, and I processed one yesterday and the other today, just to have like fresh ideas, fresh mind on things. And let me share with you what I got. And I have both results in PixInsight. Here is one result. Here is the other result. Now, of course, they're processed not exactly in the same way. I mean, I'm human. I don't do exactly the same thing. But you can compare those two. It seems that I ended up with a brighter background on this one than on that one. And People familiar with PixInsight probably know which is which because of the file names. But to tell you, this is the throw everything in version with 6 hours of data. And this is the 4 hours of data. Let's select only the best frames and weigh them. And honestly, while I was processing it, it did feel easier to process the one with higher quality data. On the one with basically more frames but lower quality data, it did feel that I had to be more careful when I did dynamic background extraction. I had to be a bit more careful when I did curves transformation after the easy soft stretch. And it felt like I needed to be a bit more careful about what I was doing. But in both we can see we have the Tadpoles Nebula, we have the Flaming Star Nebula, and we have Comet Atlas here. And we have some fairly diffuse nebulosity, which I'm happy to have gotten in Tokyo. And one of the things that I noticed, like, of course, this one has a darker background, and that's probably because I feel I couldn't push it as much as I could the other one. But I do feel like the nebulosity around the comet is captured better than in the higher quality, fewer frames picture. So maybe it's just a matter of contrast, but you can see that overall those pictures are very similar, even though it felt like the one with fewer frames was a bit easier to process. And if I zoom in around the Atlas comet that's here, and we can try to zoom in roughly the same area here. Well, it does feel to me, I mean, your view may vary, and YouTube's encryption quality might completely destroy any argument I make here, but it does feel like this one, the throw everything in, has more noise, and that would make sense. I do remember applying ACDNR noise reduction on both images, and yeah, it would make sense because I darkened the background more while doing it, separately without looking at each other's pictures while I was doing the processing. Which, but overall, like if you look at the end result, seriously, which one is the better picture? I think I might actually prefer this one with the darker background right now. All of the frames in, darker background. It's kind of up to the eye of the beholder. In terms of processing, the one with the higher quality frames was definitely easier to process. And going forward, that's probably the way I'll be going, all the time, like I've done in the past. But this is something that I've always wondered about, like higher quality frames but fewer of them, or lower quality frames but more of them. What is there? Where do we draw the line? And it seems that for me here, we don't really draw the line. It's very similar results. Maybe slightly easier to process with the higher quality frames. But in the end, it's really a matter of, like, do I want to spend 20 hours in Tokyo doing my capture, or half that time in Uenohara, where I do paragliding, which is still close to Tokyo, but maybe border 5 or so, and take half that time. And it really it gets reflected in the captures that I'm doing here. And in the end, I think that higher quality, lower exposure time will always trump the more exposure time and lower quality, lower contrast, because yes, it's you have to work more on those frames with lower quality, as no one would have guessed ever. And really, that's really the only topic that I wanted to go into for this video. I'll be putting the 2 pictures like at the end of this video with some music, whatever. If you want to enjoy that, if that's your thing. And apologies for not posting a lot of videos. I don't know when my next video will be. I don't have that many ideas right now. There's the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction coming up. I might try to get that, depending on my level of energy. Oh, who am I kidding? Of course I will I will make the effort to view it, but I do not know whether I will make a video out of it. We'll see. And with that, thank you so much as always for watching, for all of you that have sent me messages that I've horribly ignored, and all of those millions of comments that accumulated during that time frame. I'm so sorry I haven't answered, but I have read all of them, and I am so thankful for all of your help and for all of your best wishes. So as always, thank you so much. Whenever you can, don't forget to look up at the stars, and I'll see you next time.